Welcome back to The Pulse. A lot of uncertainties right now in the airline industry, from rising fuel prices to the potential of a bailout of Spirit Airlines. Joining us to discuss, aviation expert Evan Brode. Evan, hi, how are you tonight?
Good, how are you? Thank you for having me.
Good. First of all, if you haven't been following the Spirit saga over the years, obviously a discount airline, the big yellow, plane in the sky. Tell us a little bit about how we got here. I mean, they filed for bankruptcy twice in the last 2 years. Where does their story start?
Exactly. So when we think of Spirit Airlines, right, just as you say, it's the yellow airplane. It's sometimes known as like a budget airline. But here in Detroit, it's a super important airline because it's the second biggest airline based here in Detroit, and it is a hub here in Detroit. So it is a very important airline for Detroiters and people surrounding the Metro Detroit area. Now, over time, what we've realized is this budget airline model that's so-called, Spirit, Frontier, these type of airlines is starting to not work as good as it always has. And so profits are starting to fall and losses are starting to add up. Now, when we look at this and we see Spirit falling, now they've been gone through bankruptcy. Now this is the second time. It's really just proven that. And the Trump administration is coming in and trying to see what they can do to, help out their bankruptcy.
And why does that model not work? I mean, when you think about it, you go to Delta, for example, because we're a hub, so I'll use them. Everything's kind of a package deal, right? When you go to JetBlue or Spirit, you're kind of piecemealing a little bit. The bag's this, your seat's this. Why didn't it work, and why did they get to the point where they're in bankruptcy?
Yeah, and you don't even realize it, but you kind of answered your own question. Yeah. And the thing is, it's exactly that. People go on an airline like Spirit or any budget airline, and they got to spend extra money for this bag, extra money to bring their own backpack, their purse, things like that. And so people are like, I don't need to bring an extra bag. I'm going to try to bring as little as possible. And in doing that, when these customers do that, it's taking away profits away from the airline and bringing these bigger airlines like Delta, United American up to the forefront.
And so the proposal by the Trump administration is to give them a $500 million loan for a potential stake in the company to either get paid back or eventually sell for profit. You say yourself, Spirit is an important airline for Detroit. If, to quote the auto industry several years ago, too big to fail, is that sort of the territory we're walking in? Is this, if these guys were to fail, what kind of impact it would have?
A little bit, exactly that. I mean, if Spirit were to go down, if the administration doesn't help out Spirit, if Spirit's not able to get out of bankruptcy, then what we could find is Delta is now the only major airline in Detroit. So now they're not competing for airline prices, and you'll start to see those routes where it's only Detroit and only Spirit coming up in those routes. Those prices will start to skyrocket for customers in the area.
And what does this do? I know you have a bit of expertise in pilots and how they fit into all of this. When you're dealing with an airline like Spirit, first of all, how do you encourage more pilots to come to your airline over some of the other ones that are more stable? And what will that look like moving forward? It's
very difficult. I mean, if you're Spirit, you have airline pilots leaving. You've furloughed pilots a while ago. So you're short on pilots as well. And so if you're looking for a job as a pilot, it's almost seen as like a last case scenario, because like, why would I go to an airline that could be failing soon? And so that's kind of the battle that upcoming pilots and pilots going through training are dealing with right now. But I mean, we'll see as the weeks and months go on, we'll see what happens, and we'll see where these pilots find their best place to spend their career.
And once upon a time, there was kind of a shortage of pilots, or at least interest in the field. Where does that stand right now?
There's still a lot of talk that there is a shortage of pilots. Yeah. It's actually kind of false and inaccurate. There's really a shortage of captains, but we take our first officers, our co-pilots, we bring them into the captain spot, and now the captain shortage has gone away, but we don't have pilots to fill the first officer spot. So that's kind of what's dealing in there now. But the projections for the United States Airlines, they're expecting 6,000 pilots to be hired within the next year. And that's still less than the number of pilots we have coming out of pilot training, so it should be no worries.
And as far as how this trickles down to you or I, who may want to hop on a flight to Spirit, get a cheap flight, how does a bankruptcy like this or a potential bailout, how does it affect ticket prices?
Right now they're going to probably lower ticket prices on Spirit Airlines, because they're trying to, these customers are like, why would I go on Spirit if they're going to fail? Could I get stuck in a destination, right? Why would I book a round trip ticket if I don't know if I can get back? And that's happened before to airline customers and other airlines. So I would expect that the Spirit Airlines prices could fall. That could also mean Delta prices could fall if they're on the same route. Delta has to compete with Spirit. Spirit has to compete with Delta a little bit, even though it's a different type of airline model.
Which isn't the worst thing, given that airline prices are up or projected to be up because of fuel prices. How does that even add more complications for every airline, not just Spirit?
It brings in the whole lot of complications into the entire picture. I mean, you have airlines, Delta, Southwest, and more that are, increasing baggage fees and doing things like that. You have other airlines that now that, the Trump administration has spoken to Spirit and said, maybe we'll give you money, we'll take some of your company. Now you have other airlines like Frontier and Avelo that's saying, okay, you're going to help out Spirit. Why don't you help out us? Give us a couple $2 billion and help our fuel. In airlines, 20 to 40% of airlines are actually 20 to 40% of their cost is actually fuel. And so jet fuel has doubled in recent months. And that 20 to 40% of fuel to an airline's cost is a huge deal.
And last question, we got 15 seconds left. Would you book travel a few months out right now, or would you kind of hold off?
On Spirit Airlines, it's hard to tell. It's kind of a guessing game for now. It's kind of your choice. If it's a good deal, go for it. If not, and if you're on the more lenient side, then hold out.
All right, maybe we'll look for those real cheap tickets. All right, Evan Brode, thank you so much. That is the Pulse for tonight. I'm Jessica Dupnack. Thank you so much for joining us.